Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today I want to talk about what might actually be one of the stupidest fake crimes I've ever seen in my entire life that honestly has worse planning and execution than the Jussie Smollett hate crime hoax, and that's why I want to talk about it today. Pure entertainment value. I want to show you how the police were able to crack this case in a matter of minutes and how embarrassing it is for everyone involved. Plus, on top of that, I would like to name and shame the criminals in this particular instance and talk about how much money they actually did it for. But before we get into that, thank you to everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
At first glance, this may look like an assault and robbery, but cops in Georgia say it was all an act.
So first things first, agree to disagree. At first glance, this actually does not look like an assault and robbery, and I'll tell you why. Because this individual who is playing the role of a store clerk, and by the way, I am disparaging his acting because he's actually a store clerk, fell like this on video. This is what he decided to go with as far as acting in terms of this robbery. He basically threw himself limply onto the ground in an embarrassing way. And this is clearly and obviously him trying not to get too hurt hitting the ground, and this is why it doesn't look real, even from this moment right here.
So these two could steal $5,000 from their place of employment.
Also, the robber goes directly for the sum of cash. It doesn't even look like he opened the register, so it would appear that if we were to believe this crime to be true, the robber would have to come in seemingly potentially armed, but it doesn't really look like it in the video. Maybe there's a knife that I can't see. This guy would have had to be so scared and so terrified that he threw himself limply to the ground. And at the same time, the criminal would have to know exactly where the money is, or it would have to coincidentally be in plain sight so he could take it and so he could run away. And when I say so he could take it and so he could run away, what I actually mean is so he could take it and not run away, because running away from the scene of the robbery wasn't a part of their planned fake robbery. So when the police showed up, that guy was actually still there.
Police in Duluth say they were called to a Shell gas station to investigate a robbery last month. When they got there, they questioned Raj Patel, who was working behind the counter at the time and claimed to be the victim.
He came first time like 30 minutes.
What did he look like? Give me a description. What was he wearing?
Also on scene was this man, Danny Curtis, who claimed he didn't see the robbery or the suspect.
So here's a snippet from the body cam footage where he's like, oh, he came 30 minutes ago, which, by the way, police response time, if this was actually an armed robbery, very sad, very upsetting that it took you 30 minutes. But then again, when I got my car stolen by those horrible human beings that took my car, it took almost an hour for the police to get there. So I guess, fair is fair. They did better than, the police department, even though the station is actually relatively close, and I could probably walk to that station in like 15 minutes, but whatever. This isn't about me. This isn't about my car, even though it is about me, and everything is about my car. But point being, he's given the description of the guy. It's very vague because he doesn't want to, specifically give away too much information that will reveal who did it, but he does describe the clothing because they have a solution for the clothing. And if you notice, when they find the other person on scene, he's wearing a different set of clothes than the robber.
Also on scene was this man, Danny Curtis, who claimed he didn't see the robbery or the suspect.
Okay, so let's run down this scenario right here, and I will explain why it's actually possibly worse than Jussie Smollett, even though the Jussie Smollett hoax was ridiculous because it also had the hate crime implication. But just let me break it down for you so you can understand what went down right here. So $5,000 is what they wanted to steal. So this guy, Curtis, dresses up in the other hoodie, comes in, he robs Raj. Raj falls like this. Remember, take note of the fact that this is how Raj fell.
At first glance, this may look like an assault and robbery.
And then, during the course of the events, he decides to flee, wink wink, to another part of this property. He's just outside where the garbage is, but he keeps all $5,000 on his person.
They say Curtis was found to have a large amount of cash on him.
All that cash is yours.
In my pocket.
You just carry around cash in your pocket.
Yeah.
When the police show up, and again, he's right there. The robber ran there according to surveillance video, and to make matters worse, these people who worked at the stores, who presumably would actually know about the surveillance cameras and showed the officers the surveillance cameras, even the area that they ran to is actually covered by the surveillance camera. So they get the robber running from the direction of this guy Curtis, and then running back the direction of this guy Curtis, but Curtis says he didn't see nothing. But Curtis also has all of the money on him from the robbery, but at least he changed his clothes.
When police viewed the surveillance footage from the incident, they say they saw the alleged robber go into an area where the garbage is kept behind the gas station and come out wearing different clothes that looked like what Curtis was wearing.
So of course the police, again, A+ detective work, where they follow the surveillance video that shows this guy going exactly where Curtis went, even though Curtis said he didn't see nothing, he didn't know nothing. I'm sure Raj, like an absolute idiot, said he ran off in the other direction, which is contradicted by the surveillance video. And then the robber comes out wearing the exact same clothes as Curtis. I don't know why the police are describing it this way. The robber is Curtis. Spoiler alert. Curtis is the robber. Curtis committed the crime with Raj. It wasn't him alone. Obviously, this guy wasn't a big idea man, but he got suckered in by somebody who is maybe slightly less stupid or slightly stupider. I don't really know. But the reason the robber went into the trash area where somebody came out wearing the exact same clothes as Curtis is because they are actually one and the same. They're the same person. They've never been seen at the same location at the same time, if you catch my drift.
So they question Curtis and say he came clean.
Was your intention to do this by yourself?
No, it was staged. But
It was staged.
The dude who worked there told me to do it.
The dude told you to do it.
It was staged.
Danny Curtis and Raj Patel are charged with making false statements and filing false government documents. Curtis has also been charged with conspiracy to commit a felony.
So Curtis goes into interrogation and he does not uphold the stop snitching rule for long. He immediately flips on Raj Patel. He explains the whole situation, and obviously this was staged. Obviously this was not Curtis acting alone, because Raj should have been able to recognize the other person who works at the store, and this was not made clear to the police at any point in time. On top of that, the clothes of the robber were found in the same area that Curtis was. So the robber comes in, Raj falls like this, and never forget that he felt like this, people. This is something that actually happened. Immediately goes to the money, grabs the money, which is easily accessible, $5,000. Then he takes off, goes around the back of the store, goes into this dumpster area, walk-in garbage area, whatever you want to call it, and then comes out wearing Curtis's clothes. In that area, they find the clothes that match the robber. I'm guarantee you, if they DNA those clothes, from touch DNA, they would match Curtis, and Curtis has the exact amount of money that is reported missing from the robbery. This is the most obvious crime ever. They didn't even have him leave the scene of the crime. All he had to do was take off, and it would have taken the police at least a week to figure this out, not literally one day, not 10 minutes to understand what went down here, and maybe, just maybe, they would have been able to get away with their grand loot of $2,500 a piece. That's what they did this for, by the way. $2,500 cash each. That's the amount of money that they wanted. They filed a false police report, staged a robbery, called the police, did all these extra steps in order to steal $2,500, $2,500. Now, granted, who wouldn't love $2,500? I'd love $2,500. I'm sure you guys would love $2,500. But is it worth all this? And if it is worth all this, would you come up with a better plan than having Raj fall this way?
Curtis has also been charged with conspiracy to commit a felony.
Now, if we're being perfectly honest, Curtis came clean when the police brought him into interrogation. He turned on Raj Patel, made this an open and shut case, so I feel a little bit bad that he seems to be getting charged more than Raj Patel, who's obviously the mastermind, and I use this term incredibly loosely for this particular crime, and I just think that maybe Curtis should get a break in order to testify against this individual. And by the way, you guys were wondering, because I said in the open that this crime might actually be dumber than the Jussie Smollett crime. The reason I believe that it might actually be dumber is not because the premise is less possible, but the execution is far, far worse. The Osundaru brothers had the decency to flee the scene of the crime. They weren't just hanging around right there with the same clothes nearby and whatever property that tied them to the crime on their person. Like, they did a better job than what went down over here. That was a ridiculous scenario, completely unbelievable, unlike a robbery. But remember, this crime has Raj Patel falling like this. But at least the alleged criminals in the Smollett case were not on the scene at the time of the crime. In fact, they went to Nigeria, so the police had to wait for them to fly back in order to make the arrest. That's why they were being very hush-hush about the case, so they didn't decide to stay in Nigeria and they wouldn't get into this whole extradition thing. But yeah, this is insane. This is the dumbest crime ever. And again, it has no gain in sight. I mean, $2,500, again, it's not like it's nothing, right? If somebody sent me $2,500 right now, I would be very happy. I would be elated. I'm just saying. But if it's not worth the time in prison. It's not worth going to jail. And Curtis, you know what? He might be okay in prison. He might be doing all right. He has enough people to join up because prison is very racially segregated that he might be able to hang in there. But Raj Patel, you know how few Indians commit crimes in the United States of America? It's very low. The broader category of Asians in terms of inmates is like 2% of the prison population. This guy ain't gonna make it in prison, especially since Curtis already flipped on him. Curtis already sold him down the river. Not to mention the fact that he's gonna lose his job, but not to mention the fact that it flies in the face of stereotypes, because I have learned from a long history of The Simpsons that the guy running the convenience store that happens to be Indian is a good, hardworking individual and an exemplary American. This guy, Raj Patel, garbage that Curtis was hiding in and dumped his clothes in level of garbage right here. Garbage at planning, garbage at execution. This is not a guy who works at a gas station because he's grinding as a small business owner in order to get his engineering degree. This is a guy who works at a gas station because he failed at life. Loser through and through. You're embarrassing, Raj, and I can't believe you actually thought that this fall was going to be a big sell. Now look, there's no broader policy implication to a video like this. I just thought the story was funny because the story is funny. It's hilarious. It's such a poorly executed plan that it is worthy of commentary just because of how bad it is. These guys, I don't even know if I want them to go to prison, if I'm being perfectly honest. They didn't hurt anybody. They didn't even show a good simulation of hurting somebody, but we do need some consequences for people breaking the law like this. So maybe some jail time. They end up pleading down to a misdemeanor. I would be okay with that in terms of this particular example, because first of all, they're both going to be fired based on this, not to mention the fact all of the embarrassment and ridicule that Raj Patel will have to deal with, because during his one moment to shine, during his one moment where he was going to get that $2,500 in order to pay for his acting lessons, in order to make it into Hollywood, this is how he performed. He showed the truth of what his father always told him, which is he doesn't have what it takes to make it in Hollywood. Not in that town, not ever. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Those are just my opinions. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Is this robbery stage actually worse than the Jussie Smollett case? Or is the premise of the Smollett case so bad that it just makes it so much less believable from the jump and nothing could change that? If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Raj and Curtis's adventure into staging crimes. Till next time.